about today, or more, then we'll go on from there. What is the periodic table? What can you learn from there? What does it have? It has everything in there. If you go specifically analyze, you can basically, it is your sort of a Bible, in fact. The elements. So, and as you know, that elements are arranged systematically in a periodic table, and it was developed in 1960s, as 1860s, as you can see, almost 150 years ago, by the Dmitry Mendeleev, and that is called old periodic table. In the old periodic table, the elements were arranged in a particular group, and a group has a column, and he put in a box, basically a square box, all right? And in that column, the elements which have similar properties, he grouped them in one place. So that's called groups. And then if you go to group 1, group 2, group 3, etc., and goes like this way. So that's the old periodic table. When he did that periodic table, he used the atomic weight of an element. Remember, the most smallest particle of an element is the atom, and weight of an atom is the atomic weight. Atomic weight, when he did that, it was with integers, in fact, because he did not have the opportunity to look at that every element on nature, on Earth, or in the universe has isotopes. Isotopes have a similar, the number of electrons and protons are the same. Neutrons are different. So the isotope of an element is the same element. They have a same number of protons and electrons, but they have different number of neutrons. Therefore, the atomic weight of an element, the average weight is different from the others. So average weight, he did not have the opportunity or the technology advantages at the time to detect the isotopes. So he put those elements according to the atomic weight, but there something happened, because some of those elements are overlapping each other because they have the same atomic weight, and that is not possible, right? So that you cannot put in a one box several elements together or atoms together. So that was the old periodic table. Therefore, that old periodic table has been modified since, and now it is came to the modern periodic table. So old periodic table based on the atomic weight, W-E-I-G-H-T, atomic weight. Modern periodic table is based on atomic number, and atomic number is the number of protons, atomic number. So atomic number is the number of protons, atomic number is the number of protons. So number of protons of all elements are unique, and that's why the modern periodic table is elements in the modern periodic tables are arranged systematically in terms of the increasing atomic number. For example, hydrogen has 1, helium 2, and etc., right? So this is the periodic table, and you already have it, and you must take a look at it. It is very one of the key for this class, or all chemistry. This is sort of a Bible in chemistry, in fact. So not only by chemistry, physics, and other disciplines as well. So what we can learn from this, you can learn many things. First thing first, we can learn the symbols. We can learn the symbols of the elements. And symbols of the elements, as you can see from there, and these symbols are basically naturally occurring elements, many of them, nitrogen, hydrogen, oxygen, sulfur, phosphorus, etc. And many of those elements are named according to the planet. Some of them are named according to the discoverer who discovered that element. Some of the elements are named according to the mythological things. There are so many things up there. Irrespective of their origins of naming, they are arranged systematically in this periodic table. And in this periodic table, what you see, you have elements: hydrogen, lithium, sodium, potassium, rubidium, cesium, francium. They're in a group 1A. Group 1A. Group 2A, beryllium, magnesium, calcium, strontium, barium, and radon, and radium is all of them are group 2A. Group 1A also has a special name. You must write down the special name of the group 1A. So group 1A elements have a special name, except hydrogen, of course. Group 1a elements called alkaline metals. Alkaline metals. Alkali metal, because sodium, when it reacts with the water, it makes a sodium hydroxide. So as potassium hydroxide, rubidium hydroxide, cesium hydroxide, and etc. etc. So this, since they make a hydroxide, OH is a signature motif of a base, alkali. So that's what they call alkaline metals. The beryllium, magnesium, calcium, strontium, barium, they are mostly found in nature. Nature has the most abundant elements, calcium, magnesium, etc., etc. So these are called alkaline earth, EARTH, earth metal. So alkali metals, group 1a, group 2a is alkaline earth metals. And then you skip those block, all those 10 of them, then come to this side. So this side we have a group 3a. Group 3a has boron, aluminum, germanium, right, gallium, indium, tellurium, etc., etc. There are some other elements. There are also 114, but these names are not given. These are man-made. They're very unstable elements. And group 4a, we have a carbon, silicon, germanium, right, and then stannous or STEIN, SN, lead, etc., etc. Likewise, group 5a have nitrogen, phosphorus, arsenic, antimony, bismuth, Bi. Group 6a, oxygen, sulfur, selenium, tellurium, polonium. Group 7a, fluorine, chlorine, bromine, iodine, and astatine. Group 8a, helium, neon, argon, krypton, xenon, and radon. Group 8a has a special name. Can someone tell me what's the special name for the group 8a? It's called
noble gases.
Noble gases or inert gases. Inert gas elements. Inert, I-N-E-R-T, inert gas element or noble gases. Why they call inert gases? Because they have an outer shell filled up completely. They do not make compounds with other elements, not in the normal conditions. If you take a harsh conditions, they might, but definitely these elements are unreactive and therefore are inactive in forming chemical compounds. Therefore, they call inert gas element. Inert, right? I-N-E-R-T. I-N-E-R-T. All right, it's very difficult to write here. Inert gas element, inert gas elements, or noble gas elements. Exactly, you're right. The group 7a has also special name. Does anyone know what is the group 7a elements called? What do they call? Group 7a elements? Group 7a elements are called halogens. Yeah, that is absolutely right. It's called halogens. So halogens, that's right. It's a halogens. Yeah, please remember. So these are very important to know. Group 1a, alkali metals. Group 2a, alkaline earth metals. Group 7a, halogens. And group 8a are the noble gas elements or gas elements. They are special names, and you must remember those names. Okay, these are only 4 of them. Now, so we have a group 1a to 8a. Then in between, we have a B group of elements. These B group of elements are called transition elements, the transition elements. And each transition elements, each block, as you can see from there, the scandium to all the way to zinc, Zn, right? Scandium to zinc, ytterbium to cadmium, lanthanum to mercury, actinium to selenium, they're all in the 10 elements of there. Those all the 10 elements, these are 40 elements, right? 10 times 4, 40 elements. These are known as transition elements. They are special. They basically do not follow the conventional rules and regulations that the metallic groups like group 1a, 2a, 3a elements, those are called metals. The group 1a, 2a, 3a, they follow a specific rules and regulations, the metals. This group of elements, 40 of them, transition elements, they are also metals, but they do not follow the regular conventional rules. They have a different charges, and the metals usually have a specific charge. For example, group 1a metal will have a 1 positive charge, Group 2A metals will have 2 positive charges. Group 3A metals will have 3 positive charges, etc., right? But transition metals can have more than 1 charges. For example, if you take the iron, iron can have an iron 2 plus and iron 3 plus. So iron 3 plus is called ferric. It's a red, deep red color. Iron 2 plus is blue color. And you have seen the iron, you see the iron is present in our body. Who can tell me what do you see the iron in our body? Does anyone know? Iron in the form of iron, of course. Does anyone know what do you see the iron in our body? Hemoglobin. Hemoglobin, heme group, that is correct. Hemoglobin, the red blood cells. The red blood cells, they are called red blood cells because they have a heme group, and inside the heme group, iron 3 plus is there. When iron 3 plus and it binds to oxygen, it's called oxygenated blood. It's a deep red. When the oxygen is given to the cells and returned to the lungs, then there is a blue color. So that's why you have veins and arteries, right? Arteries carry the oxygenated blood, and veins carry back to the heart or back to the lungs for oxygenation. And that is our blue color. If you look at your skin, once you can see those blue color veins are very, very visible for many people. All right. So so iron can have 2 different types of the charges. Likewise, manganese can also have many charges. You can have a +2, +4, +6, +7. Chromium can have very similar, +2, +4, +7. So they basically don't follow the proper rules. Copper, for example, can have 1 plus, 2 plus. Zinc have 2 pluses only. So therefore, there's some difference between these metals. That's why they're grouped in a 1 block, as you can see, 10 block each, and these are called transition elements. These elements are also known as D block element. You know the D, letter D, block elements. Please write it down, D block elements. Why they are called D block elements? Because these D elements have the electronic configuration starting from the D block, D. You know the electronic configuration we'll talk about very soon. Electrons are present in the outer shell, right, extranuclear space, and protons and neutrons are in the nucleus. That's the protons and neutrons are, neutrons is the negative charge, protons are positive charge, and electrons are negative charges, right? So when in the nucleus of an atom, all elements, the smallest particle of an element is called atom. Atom has the nucleus. In the nucleus is the protons and electrons, positive charge, protons and neutrons, positive charge and neutral particles. So overall charge of the nucleus is positive. Please write it down. And overall charge of the extranuclear space is negative because electrons are spinning around the extranuclear space. All right. So and when those electrons are arranged in the extranuclear space, they have a different shells. We'll talk about very soon. Called S is a Sam, P is a Paul, SPD, and D for the David or D for the D block, and that's why these elements are basically filling the D block element, D block. So, for example, scandium has a outer shell 3D1. Titanium has a 3D2. The Valennium has a 2D3. Chromium has 2D4. And it goes like this way. Zinc has 3D10. Likewise, ytterbium has 4D1, cadmium has 4D10, lanthanum has 5D1, mercury has 5D10, and actinium has 6D1, and selenium has 6D10. So basically, they are filling the D block, D1 to D10. That's what they call D block elements. So transition elements are also known as D block elements. Now, if you go slowly from here, once you have the lanthanum, La57, a series of elements have very similar properties like lanthanum. And these are called lanthanides. They're all here, 58, 59, 60 to all the way 71. Then start from hafnium, 72, tellurium, all those things goes on and on, right? Likewise, if you come to 89, actinium, right? It's a 90, and there's a series of elements that also have similar properties. Most of them are radioactive, by the way. And these elements are also called actinides. Actinides. So lanthanides starting from the 58 to 71, actinides 90 to 103, the Lawrencium. And to be honest, when the Mendeleev was putting those elements together in the table, he had only 65 to 73 elements, not many. Remember, 18th century, right? 19th century, it increased to 103. Now, 20th century, we have 118. 17 is not shown because it is very unstable and could not be detected very easily. All right, and the names are not given yet because they're unstable. Until you stabilize them and get some properties, and then only then and then you can get the actual name. They have some name, but those names are not established yet. All right. So from this, this is the periodic table, and in the periodic table, the names, the symbols are given from the first letter or first two letters. Hydrogen H, boron B, carbon C, nitrogen N, oxygen, fluorine O and F, respectively. Right. Phosphorus P, sulfur S, and aluminum Al. Si, silicon, etc., etc. So that's where the symbols are coming from. There are most of the symbols follow the name, first two letter of the one letter. There are some special elements that do not follow the name, and you have to remember them very, very well. And tell me what's the name of this element that I'm circling it. Who can tell me the name of this element? Na. What's the Na stands for?
Sodium.
Sodium. Exactly. Sorry, this is sodium. So sodium is not S or SO. Just a minute. So my here, sodium is SO, not SO or S. S is a sulfur, and therefore Na. You have to remember that. Likewise, what's the symbol for K? Or what's the name for the K?
Potassium.
Potassium. Potassium, not P. P is a phosphorus. Potassium. So it's a K. So that's a weird name. Definitely you have to remember. Many of you do, but if you do not, we can work on those, right? So likewise, what's the Fe? What's the Fe stands for? What's the Fe?
Iron.
Iron, but it's not I, right? It's not I or IR or something like that. So therefore, you have to remember that. So iron. Copper is fine. It's a COPPER, but Cu is fine, but still is okay, acceptable. Now, what is this element? What's this element?
Silver.
It's a silver. It's not Si, right? Or S. S is a sulfur. Si is a silicon. Is a silicon. It's a silicon. So therefore, it has a different name. It's Ag. How about Au? What's the name of the
Gold.
That's right. It's Arrhenius, gold. That's correct. That's a very good. And what's the name of this symbol? Can you tell me what's this symbol?
Mercury.
It is a mercury, not Me or something like that, or M, right? It's a mercury. So these are the special elements. There's one more right here. What's the name of this element? Who can tell me?
Lead.
It's a lead, not Le or L. That's right, it's a lead, it's a Pb. So these are the special names that you have to remember. You must remember because these are questions. So you should know you do not have to know the symbol for all of them. You cannot do 118 of them or 113 of them or 103 of them. At least you should know the symbols from 1 to 30, 30, zinc. You must know the symbols. Plus the weird ones like Ag, Au, mercury, and lead. These are the only four of them. Sodium, potassium are included from 1 to 30. And plus these four, you should know the symbol for those. All right. And you should also know the symbol for all those inert gas elements. Helium, neon, argon, krypton, xenon, and radon. And you should know the elements, the name of the elements of the 7A halogens: fluorine, chlorine, bromine, iodine, and astatine. All right, astatine is not that important, but definitely fluorine, chlorine, bromine, iodine, you'll see them routinely. All right. So these are the symbols of the elements, and each box, as you can see, square box, right, or rectangular box, only one element is there. In the element, there is two things there. You can see this, right? One is in the top and one is in the bottom. The top one is the number of protons or atomic number. Number of protons or atomic number. Please write it down. Number of protons or atomic number. That's the top one. All right? That's atomic number. Number of protons. And bottom one is atomic mass or atomic weight. It's a relative atomic weight because it is the average weighted average of all the isotopes of hydrogen. Hydrogen has 3 isotopes. 3 isotopes means they have the same number of protons and electrons, but number of neutrons are different. For example, the regular hydrogen H has a 1 proton, 1 electron. Great, no neutrons. H and D2, have you ever seen this D2? So D, deuterium, it has the 1 and 2, 1 and 2. So the mass number, the number of protons is 1 and number of neutrons is 1. 1 proton, that's atomic number, and it is a 2, and that 2 indicates this deuterium, isotope of hydrogen, has 1 proton and 1 neutron in the nucleus. Likewise, tritium is called tritium, but the symbol is 3, H and 1. All right, H and 1. So actually, this is the if you write that, if 2 is usually in the top, what we'll talk about later on those numbers. So hydrogen has 3 isotopes: hydrogen, deuterium, and tritium. And based on their abundance on nature, one can do the weighted average of the weight of all 3, and that's a weighted average 1.008. That's called a relative mass. Now, all the elements naturally occurring, all those elements that you can see, except those man-made ones, they all have isotopes. Some of them isotope 2 or more. Some of them only 2. Some of them have 3. Some of them as many as 7. So there are many isotopes are there for depending on the elements, and one has to take the average, weighted average of their mass, and that's why the mass number is always fractional number. You can see decimals: 39.1, 85.47. 132.9, etc., right? So that's basically the atomic weight. So whenever you see the periodic table, you see the elements, atomic number. Atomic number is the number of protons, and that's why this arranged accordingly. Number 1 to all the way to number 18, 118 right here. So they're all basically systematically arranged according to the atomic number. When Mendeleev did it, he used the atomic weight, and because of the atomic weight can overlap, therefore more than one elements can come to the same box. Of course, that's not acceptable. Therefore, it has been changed since then. In a modern periodic table is based on the atomic number. All right, so that's basically the symbols that you can know which are the transition elements, which are that's a D block elements, and group 1A, 2A, and 3A. You see the violet color, this kind of color, right? This color, these are called main group elements. So main group elements include group 1A, 2A, and 3A. Plus some elements like these are also included in that group as well. That's called metal. These are called metals. Then the transition metals are right here, the blue color. Of course, we talked about more. And there's another two groups, lanthanides and actinides. You do not have to remember, but at least if you remember, great. The 58 to 71 is the lanthanides. Thorium 90 to 103 is the actinides. You don't have to know the symbols. There is no need for that. But there are some elements called transition elements, called D block elements. Lanthanides, these are basically, it's a block. We'll talk about later on when we go to the electronic configurations. Actinides are G blocks, but anyway, we'll talk about later on those things. Those are not that important for this class, but at least you should know what are those, right? And these are all lanthanides, actinides, transition metals, and group 1A to 3A, all metals. So we have mostly metals. We also have a non-metals, which is the yellow colored. Yellow-colored nonmetals includes the carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, fluorine, sulfur, phosphorus, chlorine, bromine, iodine, selenium. They're all basically the non-metals. And non-metals are mostly, except carbon and sulfur, phosphorus too, they're mostly basically the gases. Mostly gases, like nitrogen is gas, oxygen is gas, chlorine, bromine, iodine, they're all gases. Some of them could be liquid, bromine could be liquid as well. And hydrogen is also gas. So you can see hydrogen is present in group 1A and non-metals are this side. So why it is so? Because the metals have a typical properties. They lose electrons. So metals lose electrons to become cations, and non-metals accept electron to become anions. Once again, Metals lose electron, like a lithium will make a lithium plus. Sodium will lose 1 electron to become sodium plus. Potassium will lose 1 electron to become 1 plus. And why? And that's why they are in a group 1A. So group 1A also tells you how many electrons in the outer shell of the elements and how many electrons they can lose or gain. For metals, usually the metals, depending on group 1A, 2A, 3A. So 1A will lose 1 electrons, become 1 positive. Group 2A elements to lose 2 electrons, become 2 positive. And group 3A elements to lose 3 electrons, become 3 positive. Aluminum will lose 3 electrons, become Al3 plus, 3 plus. So metals lose electron to become cations. And anions, for example, nitrogen, oxygen, fluorine, they will accept appropriate number of electrons to fulfill the octet rule. We'll come back later. And they accept electrons. So since hydrogen is a metal, hydrogen can also lose 1 electrons, become H plus, right? So hydrogen, once it loses, hydrogen can become to H plus. H plus has a special name. Once it loses 1 electron, it becomes H plus. How many of you know what's the name of the H plus? There's a name for H plus. Does anyone know what's the name of the H plus? Yeah, it's a proton. It's called proton. Hydrogen can also accept 1 electron. It becomes a minus. So remember, hydrogen can donate electron, can lose 1 electron to become H plus proton. So that's the metallic properties. So that's just group 1A. Likewise, hydrogen can also accept electron to become H minus. H minus is called hydride ion. Hydride ion. Hydride HY. Remember, this is very important one. Hydride. All of them are important, of course. Hydride ion. Hydride ion. Hydride ion. All right. So H plus is the proton. PROT1 is a proton. As you know, proton is a positive charge because it has 1 proton in the nucleus, no electron in the extranuclear space. So that's a H plus, proton. And H minus taking 1 electron additional in the hydride ions. So non-metals accept electrons. H also accept electrons. No, H also donate electrons. So it's acting like a metal as well as the non-metallic properties. All right. So that's why it is a yellow color, but and it is also gas. It is also gas. In addition to these elements, there are 6 elements are greenish apple green color. This one, Da, Si, Ge, arsenic, germanium, arsenic, antimony, Sb, and tellurium. These elements, B, Si, G, S, Sb, and T, write down. B, Si, G, S, Sb, T. They are called metalloids. They are metalloids. Why do they call metalloids? Because they have some properties like metals. They also have some properties like non-metals. So they are basically hybrid. Therefore, that's called non-metals. And one of the they're called metalloids. One of the metalloids is most important and routinely used in some industry. There is a city name for these elements. Does anyone know what's the name of the city? SI?
Silicon Valley.
Yeah. It's a technological center, right? All those brandies and those chips makers are all there. All the Apple, you just name it. Whatever the technology, internet that they're using, all basically technology. And technology are basically mediated by the chips. And chips are mostly made with the silicon Valley. That is correct. Silicon has a very interesting properties. It can act like a non-metal, act like a metal. At higher voltage, at higher temperature, it behaves differently. And that's why many of the chips contains basically silicon. The name of the city is Silicon Valley, exactly in California. It's a technological center. All right. So remember this: boron, silicon, germanium, arsenic, antimony, and tellurium are metalloids. They have a dual properties like metals and non-metals. And that's why they're called metalloids. They're hybrid. All right, so these are the elements that we need to know. These are basically all those elements that we had, number 100 up to 180. Now, does anyone have any questions for this periodic table before I go to the elements in our body? Do you have any questions? Does anyone have any questions? Yes? All right.
What would you call the elements that are B, S, I, G, E, A, S, like the stairs one?
This one, B, S, I, G, S, S, B, and
Yeah.
T.
Are there a name for all those?
Yeah, they're the metalloids. The metalloids.
Okay. Thank you.
Metalloid. Yeah, please write down metalloids. There are metals. There are 6 of them are metalloids. They have a dual properties like metals and non-metals. So they're hybrid elements. Anybody else has any question? All right. All right, we'll move on. Move on then. So now, this is the periodic table. So you can learn all those name of the elements. You can get the symbols. You can the number of electrons in the outer shell for the specific the metals, and number of electrons. You can know the metals, non-metals, metalloids, etc., right? Transition metals, lanthanides, actinides, all those names, and some of the special names like Ag, Au, Ag, lead, iron, etc., right? Now, next one that we're going to the elements in our body. Elements in our body. Write down the title. Elements in our body. That gives you the importance, right? Why we need to study. Of course, we need to study those elements, but definitely why you need to know details of those. What are the elements present in our body? Can someone tell me? There are 2 groups of elements. The elements present in our body or any living creature are classified into 2 groups. One is called major elements. Another group is called minor elements. Can someone tell me what are the major elements in our body? What are the major elements in our body?
Carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen.
And carbon too. Yeah, that is absolutely right. Very good. Let me give you this. So this is the major elements. Write down the percentage if you can. So major elements in our body is hydrogen 63%. You're absolutely right. Oxygen is 25.5%. And carbon is 9.5%. And nitrogen is 1.4%. Now, these are major elements. Can someone tell me why hydrogen and oxygen are the major? Hydrogen is 63%. Why hydrogen and oxygen are the major, are the most among the majors? Can someone tell me?
It's because our body is mostly consists of water.
Because the water. Absolutely right. Our body consists of 70 to 75% water. Just like a Mother Earth. Mother Earth also has a land mass, about 70 to 75, 20 to 25% land mass, and mostly water, 7 to 75%. So, or 25 to 30% land mass in Mother Earth, and also the water, the ocean, also has 70 to 75% water. Exactly, our body, just like a Mother Earth, our body also has a 70 to 75% water, and about 20 to 25, 20 to 25 to 30% land mass, muscle, the solid mass, and solid mass includes the cells, the proteins, those nucleotides, all those molecules all together. They basically consist of about 25 to 30%. That is correct. And carbon is also most ingredient. Carbon is present everywhere. Carbon is the most abundant element on nature. And that's why the carbon is used for many different purposes. One such purpose to determination of atomic number, atomic weight, etc., etc. Nitrogen is also present because many of those amino acids, for example, are the building blocks of the proteins, and nitrogenous bases of the DNA, RNA. You saw it Monday, and they also contains nitrogen. And they all have a hydrogen, oxygen, carbon, nitrogen, if you see those, right? So these are the major elements. Now, if I go back, if I do not, I'm going to go a little bit back. And if you look at this, the ATP, for example, see the nitrogen, hydrogen. This is the carbon, oxygen. Phosphorus is the minor one, but without this, the nucleoside, and phosphorus is also there too. So hydrogen, oxygen, carbon, nitrogen, they're all basically are major elements. That's one such example. There are many of them. So these major elements, hydrogen, oxygen, carbon, nitrogen, they form the covalent bond. We'll talk about the covalent bond. Covalent bond is sharing a pair of electrons to create the backbones of the biomacromolecules. There are 4 biomacromolecules. You already know that, right? 4 biomacromolecules. And those 4 biomacromolecules include proteins, enzymes, polysaccharides, those sugars, lipids, those are fat, including fat and glycerol and others, and nucleic acid. So these carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen are the building blocks. They basically, they are major portion. These biomacromolecules consist of these major elements. That's what they call major elements. They make a covalent bonds, and they create the backbone of our cells. So if you look at the cells has a cell membrane that consists of the lipids. Cell membrane has also the proteins, enzymes, proteins, plenty of proteins are there. And inside the cell, we have plenty of polysaccharides, glycogen, storage food, glucose, sucrose, all sorts of molecules are all there. Inside the nucleus or nuclear region, we have RNA, DNA. So they create the backbone of the biomacromolecules. We also have a minor elements. Now, minor elements include the calcium, 0.31%, phosphorus 0.22%. Don't have to remember the percentage, but at least you should know. Chlorine, iodine, sulfur, sodium, potassium, magnesium, zinc, cobalt, copper, iron, they're all present inside the cell. Now, who can tell me where do you see the calcium in our body? Who can tell me what the calcium is? Yes? Bones, the bones, exactly. That's our skeleton, the bones. Bones has plenty of calcium, calcium in the form of calcium hepatite. That is correct, it's a bones. Now, what do you see the phosphorus? I already showed you some. What do you see the phosphorus? What is the phosphorus? Phosphorus you see in the nucleic acid, RNA and DNA, right? You saw that a few minutes ago. The RNA and DNA, the backbone, the precursor, the nucleotides consist of the phosphorus. Now, where do you see the chlorine? Where do you see the chlorine? Chlorine basically present almost every cell because it is a counter-ion of sodium and potassium. Where do you see the sodium and potassium, by the way? Sodium, potassium, it is everywhere.
Electrolytes.
There's electrolytes that are present in the form of sodium, potassium ATPase or sodium potassium pump. You know the sodium potassium pump, right? All tissues inside our body, all tissues have sodium and potassium pump. So sodium is very toxic inside the cells. Too much of the sodium. So that has to be excreted from the cells, and something has to get in as exchange. That's the potassium gets in. So potassium gets in and sodium gets out. Sodium gets out. So sodium, potassium, ATPase or sodium potassium pump. So iodine, where do you see the iodine? Does anyone know where do you see the iodine? Anyone? Iodine present in a thyroid. Present in a thyroid. And that's why whenever you buy the sodium chloride, the common salt from the supermarket, it is iodinated because it helps our thyroid. Thyroid, you know the thyroid, right? And sulfur is present in proteins. Magnesium is present almost everywhere inside the cell. We have about 5 millimolar magnesium. And we need this magnesium to bind to those phosphate groups of the nucleotides. Zinc is one of the essential metal, is required for some of the functions of some of those enzymes. So enzymatic functions depend on the magnesium ion, some of them, not all. Specifically for alcohol dehydrogenase. Magnesium is also present, also required for the DNA polymerases that make the DNA. RNA polymerases that make the RNA. Cobalt. Does anyone know where do you see the cobalt? Does anyone know where do you see the cobalt? Cobalt present in vitamin B5, vitamin B12. Cobalt present in vitamin B12. And copper is found in the mitochondria. Iron we talked about, iron found in the blood, red blood cells, RBCs. So basically these minor elements are involved in 3D structures of the elements, biomacromolecules, functions of the vitamins, the vitamin B12 for example, mitochondrial complexes, that's a copper complex. It also has a iron sulfur complex as well, and function of the heme group present in the red blood cells, that's our iron. Therefore, these elements are vital to a life form. So elements are two types, major elements and minor elements, and a brief function of those. Major elements create the backbone, minor elements are vital to a life form. All right, I'm going to leave it that place, and then we'll talk about more Friday. All right. All right. If you have any questions, stay for a few minutes. Let the other go, and then we can. If you need any kind of explanations, I'm here. All right. All right. Okay. I'm going to close this, and so